Okay, I think let's get started because it's a short time we have today, and we don't want to delay everybody. But so welcome to our third annual road trip across the province. We're really excited about this. We love doing this every year because we love to talk and have everybody talk about what great things are happening right across Ontario. There's so much wonderful work happening. So welcome to everybody for that. Before we get, and as you can see, our CEO Jason, I think he's on a scooter today. So keep your eyes open for all the different things that Jason's up to. If we can move to the next slide, Brian. Before we get started, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. Today, we recognize the land we're standing on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Neshbeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Ontario is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. I myself am sitting here in Toronto, which is covered by Treaty 13. And I encourage you all to think about where you sit and the acknowledgement of land as we work towards truth and reconciliation. I'd like specifically today to thank Fsd Pharma, who is one of our road trip event sponsors. And I'm going to ask Oksana Kova to say a few words.
Okay, thank you so much for having us. And we are very happy to sponsor this event and work with the community. Fsd Pharma is a young Canadian company which focuses on neurological disorders. We have 3 products in our pipeline: multiple sclerosis, major depression disorder, and PTSD, and pain and inflammation. And they, as you can see from our slides, they're in different stages of development, and we treat the brain as a whole and try to develop complementary products. Today, I would like to introduce our Lucid 201. It's a product for major depression disorder and post-traumatic stress disorders. We know that it's a big problem worldwide. 236 million people are affected by these diseases, and treatment-resistant depression is a major problem. So our solution is Lucid 201. It's in preclinical stage of development, and we hope to file IND by the end of the year and go into clinical trial next year. So it's a psychoactive compound of psilocybin family. We have a proprietary dosage and with non-hallucinogenic effect, which would still maintain its efficacy, but wouldn't create problem for people. Or maybe some people would actually like to have hallucinogenic effect, but our drug wouldn't provide that one. But hopefully treatment would be in place. And our lead compound has a lot of efficacy available from literature and similar trials. So I wish you have a good day on LSO road trip, day 3, and see you around.
Thank you very, very much, Oksana. We really do appreciate your FSD Pharma sponsoring, and also very exciting to hear what's happening in the space that you're in and what you're bringing to market. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So before we get going, I just wanted to remind everybody that there is a Q&A function. And so if you have a question for John as he speaks, please put it in the Q&A. I'm going to moderate that as we go along, and we'll probably ask questions closer to the end. But please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. That's very helpful. And so thank you very much for that. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce John Pollock from London. John, his full bio is on the Feedloop platform, so please take a minute to go and see that after the presentation. And I'm going to ask John to share his screen and tell us what fabulous things are going on in London.
All right, thank you very much, Allison. Just getting this picked here. And am I sharing okay there for you? Is that working? Thumbs up? Or?
Yeah, if you could put it in full screen mode.
into full screen mode. Why am I doing that? Screen sharing. Okay. You can see this transcript. Are you there?
So if you go at the top there was a slideshow,
You are.
click there.
Click there, your screen sharing. Where we go? I just did that.
Or there too. Yes, thank you.
There too. There. There. Now that's working better.
We can see your notes.
You can see my notes. I don't have any notes, so we're probably good. You're
Oh,
seeing-
the next slide probably.
We're
we can
showing
see
the next slide? We're showing the next slide. She's seeing that one too. Sorry about this. Stop
It's
sharing.
okay. It's early days, early morning. This always happens with me when I'm working with Zoom as well. Perfect. There you go.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Allison. Thank you, Brian, for organizing this. And thanks to everyone for giving us a little bit of your time this morning. My name is John Pollock. I'm with the London Economic Development Corporation here in London, Ontario. I think by way of full disclosure, I should say that the life sciences portfolio is not my specific gig here at LEDC. This portfolio belongs to my colleague, Larry McKinnon, who's unfortunately out of town. So I'm pinch hitting for him today, but I'll do the best I can. We overlap a lot because I work with entrepreneurs and startup companies. So I see a lot of the early stage life sciences activity here in London. I guess just before I get going, I don't know if anyone listening today takes statins, but if you take statins or if you take, I think, a variety of other drugs, you may know that you're not supposed to take grapefruit along with that because it affects the efficacy of the medicine. Just highlighting that because that actual research was done here in London. It's kind of front of mind today because the doctor who did that research recently passed away. He was a faculty at Western University. But I just bring that up to say we do an awful lot of practical research in life sciences and medicine here in London, a lot of things that affect people every day. So my presentation today, just to give you a quick overview, I'm going to just overview kind of the London, Ontario, and the role of LEDC. We'll take a brief look at some of our major life sciences activities that are happening in London, and then I'll conclude with our value proposition here in London. And here we go with the next slide. So for anyone who hasn't visited London lately or is a little confused about where we are, we're located midway between Toronto and Detroit. We're a major distribution center. We're also an ag-food hub. LEDC as an organization is an independent organization funded by the City of London. We act at arm's length. Our focus is in 5 key sectors around agri-food, manufacturing, life sciences, digital media, and professional services. I think like every other center in North America, the last few years have reminded us that we have to pay a little more attention to life sciences than we have in the past. So it's become much more of a focus for us in the last 2 years. In terms of our major assets in London, I mean, we can't talk about London without mentioning Western University. I won't dwell on it too much, but I would like to remind people that, or at least highlight the fact that Western University has general enrollment of around 40,000 students. Western also has degree programs in biomedical engineering, applied health sciences, biochemistry, medical biophysics. We have a lot of engineering, epidemiology, health information science, and neuroscience. So we have, our university is large and it really covers an awful lot of ground in the life sciences area. In terms of other major assets, we also have Fanshawe College here in Canada. It's saying here about 20,000 full-time students. Fanshawe is a little bit deceptive. There are 20,000 full-time, but there's probably another 15,000 part-time of people who are upgrading. And again, Fanshawe, I guess I would highlight here the fact that they do have an honors Bachelor of Applied Technology, biotechnology degree program, and co-ops. So we're getting a lot of students trained at LEDC. We are concerned with workforce. So we do have a fairly large, well-trained graduating student population that supplies all of our life sciences companies. In terms of our general ecosystem, people have probably heard of maybe not have heard of all of these, but I'll be talking a little bit about Robarts Research and Lawson. Our hospitals are London Health Sciences and St. Joe's, and I'll talk about some of the other things that are here next. I guess I just remind people that the deck will certainly be available if anybody wants it. So if I'm going quickly, please don't worry about it. I wanted to talk, I guess, drill a little bit deeper into some of the things that are actually happening in our community. One of our highlights at the moment is the Western Medical Innovation Fellowship. This program is modeled on, I guess, the first program similar to, or this one is modeled on Stanford's program. And what we do is we take, I think, in a cohort of about 10 students, or they're mostly graduates, they're doctors, postdocs, and things like that. They're brought in the summertime, and this is a paid position for this group. They're put into a boot camp where they're given a little bit of insight into things like intellectual property, business planning, design thinking, and things like that. Then they're turned loose in our hospital system and in our research facilities with the objective of looking at current research, talking to researchers, turning kind of a critical eye on all of our facilities, and looking for opportunities and things where there are potentially business opportunities or commercialization opportunities or new ways of doing things. And then over the course of I guess, the second half of the program, they actually work to see about commercializing some of the ideas that they've come across. The program's been in operation now for, I think they're in about their 6th year. You can see that we've done fairly well. They've founded a number of health technology companies. I think the most notable one that comes to my mind is Frontline Medical. And it was a collaboration between a vascular surgeon and a biomedical engineer. And they've created a device which stops bleeding in places where you cannot apply a tourniquet. So it's sort of a balloon device which can be inserted to stop blood flow from an artery when there's a catastrophic wound in your pelvis area or something. So it's been of great interest to the military and paramedics and things like that. So we've had some very interesting successes out of that program. World Discoveries is the commercialization arm really of Western University, but it also does double duty for the research facilities and the hospitals as well. So anybody who's a researcher in at a hospital or a doctor who has an idea that they would like to commercialize, World Discoveries will provide them with a little bit of insight and support as they decide whether or not it's something that should be licensed or commercialized. They don't have great resources for actually commercializing, but they can provide people with a fair bit of guidance. We have 2 enormous research institutes in London. Robarts Research, which is part of Western University, employs more than 600 people. There's an awful lot here, and I won't go into it, but I would say it's a world-class, great deal of research into brain health. They've done a lot in medical imaging. They were one of the very first places that I had seen that was making bones and joint replacements through 3D printing. Very interesting and a very successful organization. As part of Robarts, they've set aside now a floor, and this is in the last year or so, dedicated to their BioNext biomedical biomedical innovation center. So they've got an entire floor available with desk space and 3D print labs and different kinds of maker spaces. And this is, I'm gonna guess, it's really part of the continuation of services. So I mentioned the Medical Innovation Fellowship a little bit earlier. So if those fellows come up with a project and it's going to take more than a year to get it launched, they can then segue into the BioNext lab. They'll be given space and access to maker spaces. There's a little bit of funding in there for them, but then they start reaching out into, I guess, some of the other resources that are shown here in the community. LEDC would fall under their regional connections. I would say Western has now made a fairly significant commitment to entrepreneurship. So it's campus-wide, and you can access Ivy Business School, students from other faculties, and other sorts of supports. So the Robarts umbrella is providing great deal of support for medical and life sciences innovation in London. Our other major research institute in London is the Lawson Medical Health Facility. Lawson's been around for a long time. Again, it's very large. Oops, sorry, with that, this is sort of a by the numbers. They're 8th largest in Canada. Great many scientists. Again, Lawson is, there is overlap. Lawson and Robarts are located side by side on the campus of Western. Lawson is really the research arm of our hospital system, where Robarts is affiliated more closely with Western University. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of overlap between researchers and doctors and clinicians across both institutions. So there's a fair bit of collaboration, even though at the top level they're a little bit competitive. But again, a great deal of research there, and I would encourage people who are curious about research options in London to look at both. Awesome. I mentioned earlier on that I think COVID has made everyone pay a little bit more closer attention to their own life sciences ecosystems everywhere. About 18 months ago, LEDC, my organization, realized we had to pay closer attention to our life sciences ecosystem in London. We engaged a fellow, Justin Lushner, who some of you may know, and asked him to help us coordinate different assets kind of across the spectrum in London, from doctors and researchers to health sciences businesses to investors and funders. And the result of that is that we now have a forum we're calling Life Sciences London. We get together, I think, the first Thursday of the month. It's generally an online kind of meeting where people introduce themselves. We introduce life sciences projects that are happening in London. We encourage people to kind of cross-fertilize across organizations, and we see what we can do about helping people who are in the space move their projects forward if they're looking for resources beyond their institution or I guess kind of beyond their knowledge set. So again, the PowerPoint will be available to anyone afterwards, but there is a link through the LEDC website if anyone is interested in registering and attending those sessions. There's generally about, I'm going to say 35 to 40 people on the line. We try to hold the meeting to about an hour, but the idea is to make sure that we're all current on what's happening in London. So just to kind of review our sector highlights, I'd say that London's life sciences sector, we cover biotech, pharma, medical devices, manufacturing, packaging, and the rest of it. Western's medical school, dental school is very highly regarded, full range of PhD and professional programs. We have 2 teaching hospitals. We actually, London really covers the region from Windsor, really all of Southwest Ontario. People come into London from Kincardine, from Sarnia, from Strathroy. Our hospital system is large and very competent. The 2 medical research facilities, between Western and Fanshawe, we have a very good flow of young, talented people to add to our workforce. And again, I'm going to say Robarts is well known for musculoskeletal research, brain health, biomedical devices, and so forth. We have 3 clinical trials companies in London, so we can, once stuff comes out of the lab, we can trial it. We've got KGK, Alimentive, and Styrus Research, all capable of doing global clinical trials. About 25,000 people working in our health sector, so we have a good workforce of educated people. And again, through the university, we do work with immigration programs to make sure that talented young people are able to stay in London when it's possible. And again, I think our value proposition is that we have all the resources of a larger center, but maybe a little bit lower cost of living for some, and it's a little bit easier for early stage businesses to get launched and get on their feet here in London. From LEDC's point of view, we do make sure that the innovators and growing companies are tied into us and to our city. We do maintain fully serviced lands for companies that want to move here. There are no development charges for manufacturers, and there's some wiggle room for depending on what types of manufacturers and things like pharmaceuticals. Just for everyone's information, we do have a number of large medical companies in London. 3M, Trudell Medical is an extraordinarily large company. A couple of, Anvo is a recent arrival in London. They're from Vietnam. They make generic drugs. They're in the process of building a new facility here. I think like everyone else in Canada, we're very concerned about the access to PPE, and we're delighted that Medicom from Montreal is building a glove factory here in London that should be completed in the next year or so. Threw this one in just as a curiosity, because we are in the food and ag tech business as well. Aspire is building what will be the largest cricket farm. It's essentially a computerized building that grows crickets. They're in the early stages of actually getting their production line up and running. When they're fully up and running, I'm told they'll have about 1 billion crickets in the building at various stages of life, and they make cricket protein, which is being sold into the food industry. But again, a lot of R&D around that. Very interesting facility. I think that just about covers what I wanted to talk about this morning. As I mentioned, I'm filling in for Larry McKinnon. So Larry's contact information is on my deck, and that will be available to everyone there. And I'm certainly here for questions if I can answer them. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, John. And if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A, but perhaps I could follow up with just a couple of questions. And certainly such a huge amount of things going on in your area. So if I was an SME not coming out of Western or not coming out of Fanshawe or any of the fabulous groups that you're doing there, is the best entry in to kind of pick up the phone and talk to you, or is it best entry, would you say, show up at one of these forums that we have on a monthly basis, get to know what's going on? So how would you suggest people would interact?
We try very hard in London to have a no wrong door policy.
Right.
So, no matter where you come in, I think someone will hear about you. I guess I would say, absolutely, LADC is a good place to start if you're planning on coming to London. We have a regional innovation center here called Tech Alliance, which is part of the province-wide RIC network, like Mars or Communitech. They're certainly an entry point. And the life sciences meeting is probably, that would be the most focused on life science if that's where you're, if that's
right,
what you're doing and what you want to do. As far as funding and programming, again, we don't, if you have any connection with Western and you're like an early stage life sciences company, all of Western's entrepreneurship services are kind of open to you. Even if you hire a Western student and say, okay, we've got someone from Western on our team, I think they're pretty flexible about that. So there's a lot of different routes in.
Right, wonderful. And LSO really is quite an umbrella organization in terms of how they feel about life sciences. So we like you, think about agri-tech, we think about pharma or medical, we think about medical devices, sustainable chemistry. And it seems to me, knowing a little bit about what goes down in your area, that Western sits kind of in a really rich ecosystem of all of those kinds of groups. And so I just wondered if you wanted to say a few words about the larger ecosystem connections to Sarnia, to Fanshawe, like the bigger picture around agri-tech, for example, or in terms of the ecosystem.
Well, I mean, we do, and I didn't talk about it. We have a private accelerator here in London, Ontario, called the Roundhouse Accelerator, and they're kind of divided between, I'm going to say, software as a service and food and agriculture. So, and then they're also one of the outgrowths of that is our 519 growth fund. So we have, you know, this private accelerator facility, which is looking at ag tech across Southwestern Ontario, also software as a service. And then we can fund them through the 519 growth fund. We also, you know, are certainly working with Justin, and don't know why I'm having a blank on the name of his fund right now, which does life sciences funding. But we can certainly find funding for companies that are not necessarily from London. We prefer them to have a connection here. From LEDC's point of view, I mean, our focus is on London jobs to the extent that we can do that. But we're also, you know, cognizant of the ecosystem around us, and we do see projects out of Sarnia, absolutely. We do send projects that way for specialized help at the university there. And again, we reach as far down as Windsor, like I said. There's, you know, the medical innovation space is, you know, I don't see a lot coming out of rural areas, although there's probably more telehealth than I'm aware of, where we see I guess what I would call kind of digital health is coming out of Western primarily, and out of our research facilities here. So that's a little bit more local. But again, in terms of our local ecosystem here, a little known fact may be that, you know, London has a big concentration of gaming, digital gaming. So when we're talking about something like digital health, and we're trying to build something which is, you know, has a good user experience, and you know, can get people to stay on it and use it and change behaviors, then we can access those kind of skills and design skills.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, actually. Gaming and digital health are really converging in technology at the moment. So that's really interesting. Yeah. And I think it just speaks to the expertise and definitely in London and just around the area, that there's expertise people can connect with. So John, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. It was great to visit in London virtually. It's a great place to go. So I actually encourage everybody to go physically, not just virtually, and go to London and have a walk around and see what's going on. Well, thank you very much, John.
Western to be known for something more than legendary Western student parties. I mean, there's a lot here.
There's a lot, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So it's definitely worth visiting. Thanks, John.
All right.
So before we go, I just want to do a quick housekeeping. So we're continuing our roadshow. We're off next to Simcoe County, Barrie and Orillia, and then tomorrow, and then we will end up in Ottawa on Friday. So please keep joining us. It really is fascinating to hear what's going on. There is a webinar today from 12 to 1 about attracting and retaining life science talent. We have great talent here, but how do we attract it? How do we retain it? How do we keep it here? So it's really worth going to that webinar. So if you haven't already signed up for it, please do. On October 5th from 9 to 10, a fascinating talk. We're going to do some best practice sharing between Denmark, Ontario, and Quebec as we look to develop and maintain a robust life science strategy. So I think that will be really interesting to learn from these different places. And then a reminder that on November 3rd, we have our policy forum, used to be called a policy forum, and now ideas to action. So we need to move, we need to have a to-do list, we've got to action people to do things. So please join us for that from 8 to 5 November 3rd. And you can find more information on all of that on the website. Until October 3rd, which is next week, I believe, nominations are open. Please nominate your favorite or your company, people for the Lifetime Achievement Award. The whole list of the criteria is online. We really love recognizing the talent the excitement in Ontario, but we look to you to provide the nominations. So please go forward and do that. We really appreciate it. It doesn't take a long time to fill out the forms. So please do that. And finally, please go and visit our exhibitors. Request information from our exhibitors and you will be entered into a draw for a $250 Visa gift card. And if you get if you go to all 4 exhibitors, you get 4 entries, so definitely worth doing. Please go and visit them on the platform. And I'd like to thank all of our platinum sponsors here. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see all of these great groups, our gold sponsors and our silver sponsors. And specifically today, I'd like to thank Fsd Pharma for our road trip event sponsor, and also all of you for coming. Really, we're built on members here at LSO, and understanding what's going on across the province is important to all of us. So we appreciate your support as well. So thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.